morning, everybody. It's a delight to be here as always. I am going to give you a consumer program update today, but I want to start briefly in case you're unfamiliar with Potatoes USA. Most of you probably are, but where we fit in the ecosystem of the potato industry organizations that are out there, our mission at Potatoes USA is to strengthen the demand for potatoes. It's very simple, and this guides everything that we do. Now, we do this alongside a lot of other industry organizations, many of which have spoken today, but we all work together to really achieve the same goal. But our focus is on strengthening demand. We have a lot of programs that we implement to strengthen demand. You kind of have to know a lot about everything, and we're focused in a lot of areas. Today, I'm going to talk about consumers and provide you consumer insights. But if you want to know any more information, here's just a little snapshot of the different types of programs and activities that we specialize in, and we would love to talk to you about that. We do have a booth here at Potato Expo. But today we're going to talk about consumers, and we're going to start by talking about what's driving global demand. Cedric has already talked about, actually it's been talked about a couple times this morning, but we're going to talk about it just real briefly. Then we're going to look at the US market and what's happening here, understanding consumer eating patterns right now, and then we're going to talk about dietary patterns and GLP-1s. And then finally, what do consumers really think about potatoes? We think that's important. What we're trying to do is to get consumers to eat more potatoes, so understanding how they feel about potatoes is really important. So let's dig in and start with the global marketplace. We're not going to spend a lot of time here. Cedric always does a phenomenal job giving us an overview of what's going on in the EU. He also talked about some of the other changes that are going on. But this chart represents the trade of all forms of potatoes across the globe. And as you can see, from 2016 to 2024, there are more potatoes being sold across the globe. Now, the share of who's making and distributing those products has changed, but this is basically saying demand is strong and has been growing globally. What's driving that demand? It's population growth is a big factor in here. It's a lot of urbanization globally as well as the desire for consumers globally to seek out more convenience and more convenient products. So there's been a large growth in frozen product demand globally that's really driving that. They're also looking for nutritious products. Potatoes deliver that nutrition that they're looking for. And hey, we all love potatoes, no matter where we are. Now this is a slide that Cedric created. I borrowed it from him, but I think it just beautifully summarizes the situation globally. If we look at population today, and we look at where it's projected to be in 2100, you can see a lot of change is afoot. So while we're feeling some concern right here, right now about what's going on, there's more change afoot. You can see in particular Africa. The expected growth in population in Africa is going to surge through the rest of this century. And you can see that the population in traditional trading partners with the US is going to decline. So we need to be cognizant of that. And this really is directing a lot of our thought processes. We're looking for the long term in terms of what to expect with global change. Now, just a little side note, people often ask, okay, so the US exports potatoes, where do we export? 77% of the exports of US potatoes go to these 6 countries. And these 6 countries have been our top exporting partners for many years, but you can see the volume has changed. The color on the top represents the volume change that's going outside of the US. This is on a fresh weight equivalent basis, and it represents all formats that are exported. Now let's change gears and talk more domestically here within the US. This is a chart I've shown many years, so you probably have seen it if you've seen any of us at Potatoes USA speak before. But what happens with the crop in the US? And on average, annually, 20% of our crop is exported. The remainder of it is sold here domestically in the US. And it's primarily sold through the food service or the retail channels. Now, of last year's crop, so 2024 through July 2024 through June of 2025, of the crop that was grown in the US, it was sold in these formats. But what's interesting is when you add in the imports, the US imports more products than it exported as of 2022. This is actually what was sold in the US last year. So this is kind of a proxy for what consumers, how they're eating the potatoes. As you can see, more frozen product was purchased in the US than was actually grown and produced in the US. So demand is strong. We do not produce enough potatoes in the US in the formats that consumers want to eat them in. So this is just a representation, and I think it's important for everybody to understand the differences here. Now, another interesting data point is if we look back to 2019, prior to the pandemic, 58% of the potatoes sold on a fresh weight equivalent basis here in the US were sold through the food service channel. But last year, through June of 2025, 51% were sold through the food service channel and 49% were sold through the retail channel. It's quite a dramatic change in terms of where those potatoes were sold in the last 5 years. And you may not recognize that on a day-in-day-out basis, but when we look at the data, this is what it shows. So the market has shifted and will probably continue to shift. Now let's talk more about consumers, you and I, all of us who eat potatoes and all of those that we're trying to sell potatoes to. Let's look at them a little bit. Every year at Potatoes USA, we conduct a survey called our Consumer Attitudes and Usage Survey. This is a longitudinal survey. We've been looking at this data for many years now. We ask them, in general, what is important when you choose food? The number one thing always, whether it's our data or anybody else's data, is that we choose food based on the flavor. We want it to taste good. I don't think any of us would deny that. But there's other things we value as well. The freshness, that the food is a good value, that it's healthy, something people can get excited about eating and enjoy eating. It's convenient and versatile. These are the attributes when anybody's choosing whatever they're going to put on their plate that we're looking for primarily. How we've eaten our meals has changed. When we looked at 2018, when we first started to ask this question, in 2018, 51% of consumers said they eat 3 meals a day. The more traditional 3 square meals a day, snack a little, but not really very much. This last year, 44% of consumers eat 3 square meals a day. So the way in which we as consumers in the US are eating has changed and is evolving. We're eating smaller, maybe more snacking occasions, but not necessarily eating 3 square meals. We need to understand this as we're thinking about how to market to consumers, because it's not in the more traditional sense, at least from somebody in my era, who grew up on a more 3 square meal a day world of eating. We also asked the question, is anybody in your household following a dietary pattern? This last year, 52% of households adhere to some dietary guideline. It doesn't mean everybody in the household is adhering to some type of dietary guideline, and it doesn't mean that those guidelines are about weight management. In fact, here are the top dietary patterns. There's more in our list. These are the top 5 that consumers or households are adhering to. And as you can see at the bottom, clean eating and organic isn't necessarily a dietary pattern about weight management or controlling diseases or anything of that. But low sugar is the number 1, followed by a carb restrictive diet, which obviously catches our attention when we're marketing potatoes, and a low sodium diet. The arrow on low sugar just indicates that compared to the prior year, more people, statistically significant number of people, are adhering to a low sugar diet. Let's talk about diets a little bit more, because weight loss medication is becoming more of the conversation these days, particularly GLP-1. This came on the scene in the mid-2000s, And in the last 4 to 5 years, it's been used more and more as a general consumer weight loss product. It used to be more of a very specifically used for disease states. GLP-1s, if you're familiar with them, it's an injection primarily. However, as of I believe 2 days ago, maybe 3 days ago, this week is a little bit of a blur to me, the first pill format of this was launched into the marketplace here in the US. So this is gaining more adoption. GLP-1 medications are available through pharmaceutical medications like the one I just showed you and spoke about. They're also available through supplements and naturally in food and beverages. Specifically with food, foods such as eggs, nuts, healthy oils, and whole grains do offer GLP-1 benefits as well. So it's not just a medication, you can get the benefits of it through other means. Not to confuse, we've been talking about GLP-1s, but you might start hearing about GLP-3s. This is in advanced trials. I can't even begin to pronounce half the words on this description of what they are. And right now it's one pharmaceutical that's looking for it, but it's another means of weight management that might be coming on the scenes if this moves through more of these advanced trials and comes to market. So I just want to make you aware, we're talking GLP-1 today, but GLP-3s might be another product that's available in the market to control weight and disease states. The data I'm about to show you is from Circana. They do a lot of market research out there, so I want to give this credit to them. This is not our data, this is Circana's data. 23% of US households, someone is using GLP-1 today. That equates somewhere between 10 to 14% of individuals in the US today. Globally, the data shows it's just under 10% of consumers are using some form of GLP-1 to control weight. Why do people use GLP-1 medications? For those that have just recently started, 61% say they're using it for weight loss purposes. 37% of them are using it to manage health or a medical condition that they have, and 35% say they'd use it just to feel better. Interestingly enough, for those that use it for weight management, within 6 months, 62% of them quit using it, and within 12 months, 81% stop using it. So it is not, by and large, a long-term medication that's being used. The reason people stop using it is the cost. Now, with the introduction of a pill format and the more availability of it, cost will be coming down. There are side effects to it, so some people stop using it because of the side effects. They've achieved their health goal. Doctor recommends it and says, stop using it, this isn't working. There could be a change in insurance, or there was out of stock issues. Now, those that are on GLP-1s, there's this whole set of recommendations on what to eat and what not to eat. Fresh fruits and vegetables are in the what to eat. What not, or foods to avoid. Fried products are included in that. However, Circana's data shows when they poll users, for their top lunch choices, French fries are at the top of the list. So they over-index there. So while they may not be recommended, people on the medication are consuming potatoes, and they're consuming potatoes in a fried format. Now this is Circana data, and this is about all sales of consumers that are on GLP-1s. I apologize, I know it's not a great chart, but I wanted to use their data specifically and show it to you from their perspective. The two colored lines here I want you to focus on is the pink one, which is food service, and the purple one, which is general food. So what this is saying is once you've started to be on it for different durations, on the left-hand side is pre-usage, the right-hand side is 1 year usage. In food service, like the first 3 months, The sale of food declines for GLP-1 users, but then you can see it kind of increases, and then it stabilizes within a year. So for people that are on GLP-1s for a year, the amount of money they're spending at food service is the same at 1 year as it was before they started the medication. The bottom line, when it comes to general food in the store, in 1 year, it's down 1 point. So it's not like it's a dramatic decrease in sales across the board. This is not potato sales data. This is pure sales at retail. But I wanted just to give you a perspective that illuminates those numbers I just showed you a little bit. So for frozen product at retail, at the end of 1 year, frozen sales are down 3 points compared to the time before. This is GLP-1 users only in terms of their sales. The refrigerated category, it's actually up 1 point in 1 year. Produce sales are up 1.7 points after a year of usage, and deli sales are up 7.8 points. So it varies. If you're on the medication, your buying behaviors change by the types of products that are out there. Again, this is total sales of food within these categories at retail that Circana has reported. We don't have the data for potato-specific sales. We're looking into trying to work with Circana to ascertain that data or to get it. We don't have it today, but I just wanted to give you a sense of really this usage is increasing. It is a headwind for us, no doubt, but this is what the behaviors look like, and I think it's really important to understand that. Okay, as I finish out consumers here, let's talk about potatoes specifically and what consumers think about potatoes. So Americans love potatoes. We're America's favorite vegetable. We're America's favorite side dish, and we're the #1 vegetable sold at retail. It wasn't always this way. So while you might have heard us say we're America's favorite vegetable, in 2017, broccoli was America's favorite vegetable, followed by corn. So we're very proud of the fact that we've raised ourselves to that level, but we don't take it for granted. Because we haven't always been America's favorite vegetable. When it comes to potatoes, how well do potatoes deliver on different attributes? Consumers love the fact that potatoes can just be eaten so many different ways, that they're versatile, they fill you up, that they're a real product, they're satisfying, and something really everyone enjoys. Probably no surprise what that list is for everybody in this room. How often do you eat potatoes? Now, this is self-reported data, but 44% of consumers say they eat potatoes 1 to 2 times a week. 37% say they eat them 3 or more times a week, whereas 19% say they eat them less than once a week. Now, it's important to know what they love about potatoes, but it's also important to know why they don't eat more potatoes, because our job is to strengthen the demand of potatoes, so this is probably the most important piece of data we get every year. And they say, I don't eat more potatoes because I think other vegetables, are healthier, that they already eat enough, they're high in carbohydrates, they prefer other veggies, they're fattening, and they're high in calories. Now that decline, or those arrows that are down, show that compared to a year ago, the data, it's actually fewer people say that these are reasons they don't eat potatoes, so that's good, but these are still the top reasons. Another question that we ask is, when you consider what a high-quality carbohydrate is, people often think of potatoes as a carbohydrate, and they kind of are synonymous, which is why they may choose not to eat potatoes when they're trying to gain or to manage their weight. You see that potatoes are kind of far down the list on other carbohydrates that were not as perceived as high quality. So this is work that we are focused on. We're trying to change this perception and educate people that potatoes actually are a high nutrient-dense vegetable, hopefully raise the perception here. And then to round it out, I'm gonna leave you with some really positive news. In 2018, we shifted our strategy on how we market potatoes, and we've seen dramatic changes since then, particularly in nutrition and health. The items on this slide are all attributes of potatoes, that potatoes provide nutrients. They feel good about eating, they're healthy for you, they're low in calories, they're good for weight management, and on and on. all of these attributes have increased since 2018. So people feel more positively about the nutritional benefits potatoes provide. Specifically on fueling benefits, potatoes deliver the fuel you need to perform your best. That's the new campaign. We've seen a lot of improvements. So since 2018, we've seen a lot of improvements here. And then we've also seen this reflected in the media. We track media coverage, and since 2021, the positive to negative media coverage in traditional media has increased. You can see the trend line there. We're getting more and more positive press out there. And in social media, while social media is pretty favorable overall, it has increased as well. So the media and what's being said about potatoes in the public domain, aside from what any of us do from marketing perspective, is improving. And that's obviously what we need to have happen so that we can strengthen demand. So in conclusion, global demand is growing, it's shifting, it's evolving. We know that, but we have to plan for it and prepare for it. Domestic demand is strong. Nutrition conversations are evolving. 3 years ago, we weren't talking about GLP-1 medications. The reasons that consumers cite for not eating potatoes, they're declining, yet overall consumer sentiment is at its highest it's ever been. So we're kind of have a lot going on out there, but this is in general what the consumers are thinking about potatoes here and now. So with that, I am here. The Potatoes USA team is here. We would love to talk to you about answer any of your questions or provide more insights if you have them. So please come and talk to us at the booth. And thank you again for the time and the opportunity.